Stress is unavoidable. That's the reality of this life that we're living, and especially a life working in medicine. But the good news, we're not powerless. Like any diagnosis that you make, step one is identifying the thing, these maladaptive stress responses, naming it, noting if and when you're using these coping mechanisms in your own life. And step two is learning to process that stress in a more productive, healthy, and effective way. Welcome to The PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. I'm Tracy Bingaman, and I'm obsessed with redefining what success as a PA looks like and what it feels like. Here you'll find the mindset shifts, systems, and processes I use to escape healthcare burnout and integrate my work into my life. Work-life balance is a myth, and an integrated life where you thrive professionally, not a balancing act, is the goal here. My mission is to help you to grow into a unicorn PA who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and work-optional financial freedom. The PA is in. Welcome to The PA is In. I'm your host, Tracy Bingaman, and today we're kicking off a two-part series on something we all experience, and that, my friend, is stress. I wanted to name this series something sexy and catchy like stress-free summer, but we also like to keep it real over here. There is no such thing as a stress-free summer or any season, really. In healthcare and in life, stress exists. Anyone promising you a stress-free life is probably honestly full of shit. If you've ever come home from a long shift, collapsed on the couch, scrolled Instagram for an hour while eating chips and watching something you've already seen 3 times on Netflix because picking up a book, exercising, or even choosing a new show felt like it would take way too much brain power, my friend, same. Been there, done that. But here's the catch. That kind of coping might make us feel better for a moment, and I do mean a very fleeting moment, but it's short-lived, and it doesn't actually help our bodies complete the stress cycle, and that is where burnout can start to take root. So on today's episode, I'm going to share what a maladaptive stress response looks like. Things that you might be doing to cope with that stress in a way that's not super healthy. And then in the next episode, we're going to talk about some ways to process that stress in a evidence-based, meaningful, and healthy way. All right, let's go. Have you ever opened a CT, MRI, or X-ray and felt a wave of self-doubt? You're not alone. Whether you're a new grad or stepping into a new specialty, reading imaging can be one of the most intimidating parts of clinical practice. That's where Guardian Light CME comes in. This interactive, case-based tool helps you to sharpen your imaging skills and earn CME while you do it. Start now at zaronlabs.com/guardianlight and use the code TRACY10 for 10% off. You'll review real-world cases with clinical context, scroll through the actual imaging just like when you review imaging at work, and here's the best part, test your eye by toggling key findings on and off to see if you can catch them on your own first. You'll find real imaging impressions, clear teaching points, one-click CME certificates, and new cases sent directly to your inbox each and every week. You get to see it, know it, and catch it before it matters most in real life. Are you ready to gain clinical confidence and read images with ease? Head to zaronlabs.com/guardianlight. That's ZAURON labs.com/guardianlight, LITE, with the code TRACY10 for your discount. Before we dive in, let's break down what we're really talking about and make sure we're speaking the same language. We cannot dive into processing stress well or maladaptive stress response without making a distinction between the stressor, we've all got them, and our own stress response. The stressor is the threat, an angry patient, a missed chart, a sick kid, a toxic work meeting. It's the things that you encounter on a daily basis. Patient visits, someone who is in your office really sick who needs a higher level of care, people who need you, things where you're needed, or even your unsigned notes or that full in-basket full of tasks. The stressors are the things that activate your stress response. Stress is what happens in your body when you face that threat. You know both the feeling and the physiology here. Your muscles tense, your heart races, you start to breathe a little bit faster, blood pressure climbs, digestion downregulates. You're thinking about the here and now, not about the eventual things. You're definitely in that fight or flight in the moment. Your body goes into survival mode. And until that stress cycle completes, your systems stay on high alert. Like fight or flight, your body is primed to do something. Fight, flight, freeze. It is ready to take action and complete that stress response by doing something. But when the something that your body has to do is clicking sign note or review lab or call patient or reassuring the school nurse at your own kid's elementary school that 99.0 isn't a fever and that your kindergartner is safe to stay at school through the end of the day, your body doesn't realize that the stressor has been dealt with. So stressor happens, stress response happens, and then you deal with the stressor, but the stress response is still primed. So the stressor is handled, but the stress remains. What we're going to talk about in today's episode is some maladaptive ways that we cope with that stress, but the fact that those ways are not necessarily completing that stress response or that stress cycle inside of our bodies. Let's talk about some of the things that we think are helping, but actually aren't. These are things we're trying or simply doing out of a habit that don't process that stress or help us to complete the stress response inside of our own bodies. First up, doom scrolling. I love this phrase. I do not love doom scrolling, but there's just something so dramatic about the title doom scrolling. Mindless consumption that does not give our body that all clear is like freezing that stress cycle in place. And if you are at the top of the stress cycle, if you are primed to react and sort of deal with a stressor and you sort of mindlessly scroll, it doesn't down regulate your stress cycle. It doesn't down regulate your nervous system. Doom scrolling is the act of continuously scrolling through news, social media posts, mildly distressing content, often for extended periods of time, especially when you're feeling stressed or anxious. So, picking up your phone, scrolling and trying to find the bottom of your social media feed, occasionally laughing, regularly shaking your head at the ridiculousness that exists on the internet, and simultaneously wondering why your algorithm knows you so well, but also has no idea who you are. Blinking, and you look up, and poof, an hour is gone. An hour of your life is gone, and you cannot get it back. So you probably know by now that I'm training for my first Ironman 70.3 race, partly because I won't shut up about it. And yes, I know, I keep talking about it. So I end up, there is a point to the story, I promise. I end up following all of these endurance and multi-sport athletes. And so my phone and the algorithm inside of these social media sites knows that about me. So I have these athletes on my feed who are doing amazing, like Ironman 70.3s, full Ironmans, but also crazy, crazy nonsense, like a 250-mile ultra trail running marathon where you do 250 miles in something ridiculous, like 3 days. And I feel very seen by social media because it is the kind of content that inspires me. And also, I feel like the algorithm does not know me at all because who would I be to consider a race? And also, could I do that race? Doom scrolling usually involves consuming a steady stream of upsetting or emotionally charged information. Honestly, it could also be just the normal content on your newsfeed. When you're doom scrolling, you feel like you can't stop, even if it's making you feel worse or it's simply not making you feel any better. So, the studies that I have seen on dopamine and social media are startling. This slot machine like sensation of swiping up to the next post and the next post and the next post and the next video and wondering if that's the thing that's going to make you happy or sad or laugh or entertained is strongly addictive. And when you're doom scrolling, you tend to feel worse or at least not better, more anxious or hopeless as a result of your scrolling. But also, I think there's something about doom scrolling that you just feel the time was lost and you can't get it back. Scrolling social media, even when you know it's not helping you decompress or feel any better. either as a simple habit because your phone is near you and you're picking it up, or a way to turn your brain off and numb your thoughts after a day of being needed and carrying a heavy mental load. That doom scrolling is not an effective way to complete the stress cycle. While it may feel like a passive and tempting way to relax, doing this doom scrolling or spending time on the internet actually keeps the stress response activated, and it can contribute to that emotional fatigue and decision paralysis. You ever feel like you're scrolling on your phone and you were just like stuck to the chair, like it would take an act of God to get you to get up and get moving? You feel stuck in this swipe, react, swipe cycle. And then you end up stuck in that stress response. And it's not that the doom scrolling makes it so you don't complete the stress response. It's just that it doesn't complete it. And you're not doing other things that are going to complete it. Number two, a different obsession. I'm going to use the example of exercising here, but this could be anything in your life that you are obsessed with or fixated on, or maybe doing in a way that is unreasonable relative to the amount of time and energy you're expending. So let's talk about over exercising. Yes, movement is so good. And exercise, as we're going to talk about on the next episode, is one of the most effective tools to complete that stress cycle. I do mean movement and not only formal exercise, but there's also a tipping point when intentional movement becomes compulsive overcompensation. Sometimes we swap one kind of stress for another, trading the emotional overload of working in healthcare for physical exhaustion and calling that trade wellness. But here's the thing: working out is only healing when it's done from a place of care, not punishment. I have been there. I've had seasons of life where movement and exercise were not a part of my life because I wanted to do them, but because I needed to outrun the overwhelm and the exhaustion. And I actually had a friend recently who I was talking to about this sort of over exercising, exercise as a punishment conundrum. And I said, actually, when I was burned out, I was working out a decent amount of time, but I wasn't doing it from a place of care or compassion. I was doing it from a place of punishment. Finish a hard workout and still feel empty and exhausted and overwhelmed, and not like I had really accomplished anything at all. I would feel guilty if I didn't hit a certain milestone or mileage or calorie burn, because if I didn't earn the rest, did I even deserve it? That, my friend, is not fitness. That's a stress response disguised as self care, disguised as exercise. It can look like forcing yourself to push through exercise even when you're fatigued or ill. Skipping rest days even though you had programmed them for yourself because you're telling yourself that rest is lazy. This is a big one for me. Using workouts to numb emotional discomfort or avoid what's really bothering you. Not feeling your feelings, but rather trying to outrun that uncomfortable sensation or the feeling that you're having or the emotions that you're dealing with. Thinking of movement only in terms of numbers, output, and results, of calories burned, of minutes on the treadmill, of miles, or of pace, not of joy or energy giving experiences. Our culture, especially the one inside of healthcare, but just modern life, praises the hustle. We post hashtags like no days off or beast mode activated or get after it. But for healthcare providers already running on fumes, pushing and punishing your body more doesn't help regulate that nervous system. It reinforces the pattern that you're only valuable when you're producing at work and on the track. So let's be clear here. I do truly deeply believe that movement is medicine, but only if that movement is paired with rest, self compassion, awareness, and intention. You don't have to earn your recovery. You don't have to destroy your body to prove that you are strong enough to do it. Sometimes completing the stress cycle looks like a walk, a gentle stretch, some deep breathing, or turning off your alarm and sleeping in if that is what your body truly needs in that moment. If the goal here is healing, not hiding from your emotions, not trying to outrun your stress, then your workout should leave you feeling better, not broken or broken down. Are you feeling stuck, burned out, or craving a little more flexibility and financial freedom? You're not alone. So many clinicians feel trapped in the grind, overworked, underpaid, and unsure how to pivot. But here's the truth: your skills are valuable beyond the clinic. That's why I created the 48 Side Gig Ideas for Healthcare Providers Guide, a free PDF packed with practical, creative, and immediately cash generating ideas that you can start right now. From telehealth to medical writing and patient advocacy to app development, and even a little note on podcasting, these things aren't fluff. These are real, proven opportunities that other providers are already doing. You don't have to figure it out alone. This guide will help you explore new passions, learn how to make extra money, and make the first step towards multiple income streams and building the life and career you actually want. Download your free copy today at tracybingaman.com/gig or click the link in the show notes and start creating financial freedom and cash flow flexibility on your own terms. Because you, my friend, are more than just your clinical job, and taking the first step to generating alternative revenue streams is waiting for you inside the Side Gig Guide. Find it now in the show notes. Step overworking. This is something that we strangely do a lot in healthcare. When we feel stressed out by work, we lean into the thing that we honestly feel the most comfortable doing. The classic move. I'll just stay a little later, pick up another shift, see one more patient, knock out this charting tonight after my kids go to bed. I'll sign up for that committee. I'll decide to do that project. I'll go for that leadership position. And all of these things seem like a good move. Overworking might look noble. It might even get praise from leadership or your colleagues or the people in your life, because going and leaning in and doing more do sort of seem like the external strappings of success. But underneath the surface, you signing up for those things is often just another way to try to outrun the stress rather than process it. In healthcare, it's easy to confuse productivity with peace. We start believing that if we just check enough boxes, answer enough messages, see enough patients, do enough things, we'll finally feel okay. Spoiler alert, we won't. You leave work only to mentally stay there. Your brain spins through patient cases while you're brushing your teeth. You, like I once did, log on to the remote access of your electronic health record to check on those sick patients, to review that CAT scan, to check on the sign out when your insomnia rears its head. When I was super burned out, I'd wake up at 2 a.m, thinking about my patients in the hospital, worried about them, unable to turn off my brain. And instead of breathing into that discomfort and getting myself back to sleep so I could be rested for the next day, I would reach to my bedside table, I would open up my phone, I would log on to Epic Remote, and I would check the notes. And then sometimes I would run the list for patients that I hadn't even seen. Maybe they were at my campus, maybe they were at other campuses, but it gave my brain something to focus on other than the fact that I was deeply unhappy, incredibly uncomfortable, and probably couldn't sleep because of the associated stress and the fact that I wasn't processing that stress well at all. When you are overworking or even mentally thinking about work outside of work, you become someone who lives at work mentally. You're not there even when you're home. Overworking is this strange, socially sanctioned way to ignore your stress. It piles on the stress, but it also distracts you from having to deal with the stress because you're too busy working, taking on more stress, taking on more patients, taking on more work to deal with the stress that you're already experiencing. But here's the thing: working more when you're stressed to the max is like bailing water out of a sinking ship without plugging the hole. It doesn't address the problem. It makes you feel like you're doing something, but it doesn't actually address the root of the problem. When your stress cycle is never completed and your nervous system stays on high alert, more work doesn't bring you relief. It just amplifies that dysregulation and piles stress on top of stress on top of stress when you're already not coping well with this existing stress that you have. You are not lazy if you rest or say no or build a boundary. You are not selfish if you unplug and enforce those boundaries. And you, my friend, are not unproductive if you give your brain and body space to breathe and recover and complete the stress cycle. Rest is not a reward for exhaustion. It's the repair that prevents it or heals you if you're already feeling that deep emotional exhaustion at the point in which you are now. Next up, alcohol, sugar, and emotional eating. When comfort foods and comfort self-soothing becomes a crutch. So self-soothing is reasonable. However, there is a limit to that as well. A glass of wine, a sleeve of Oreos, a latte that's mostly whipped cream and just a touch of coffee. These things aren't inherently bad. The issue isn't the item or the indulgence, it's the intention behind it. Are you enjoying it? Great. Are you trying to numb your feelings or escaping something with it? Because there's a huge difference between savoring a treat and enjoying the moment and living fully and needing that to survive your shift, your day, or your life. In healthcare, we spend our days making life and death rapid fire decisions, often without time to process or feel anything. And when we finally get a moment, that desire to decompress is real. And oftentimes, the food or the alcohol can feel like the quickest path to comfort. It's readily available, you know it's going to work. But emotional eating and drinking tend to follow this cycle. You're stressed. You're stressed at work, you get home. You reach for something chips, chocolate, wine. You feel a temporary relief or release. You crash, probably both emotionally and physically. Then maybe you feel that shame or frustration that you reached for that thing without making a conscious choice, that you chose something that wasn't going to fuel you, and that instead of processing your feelings or dealing with the stress, you decided to eat or drink your feelings. Rinse and repeat. The thing about overeating, the thing about having snacks or alcohol is that it does numb you, but it doesn't help you feel better long term. It silences that stress for a moment, but it doesn't complete the stress cycle. And worse, when this becomes a pattern, your body starts to expect that sugar or that wine or that alcohol as the solution to the stress. And then your internal resilience muscles weaken over time. You're not practicing completing the stress response in a way that is productive and healthy and positive. So here's your reminder in case no one has told you today. You don't have to earn your food. You don't need to justify a glass of wine. But if your coping tools exclusively are alcohol, food, sugar, or even sex, if those are the only tools in your toolbox, it might be time to build a more sustainable set. And last but not least, emotional avoidance. The lie we tell ourselves that I'm fine. You know the one. You're clearly not okay. You're stressed to the max. You are beyond busy. There's so much to do and so little time, but you say it anyway. I'm fine. You crack a joke to move the conversation along. You keep moving, keep pushing, keep pretending. And maybe you're fooling the people around you, and you might even be fooling yourself. But if you stop and you feel it, you're afraid that you won't know how to process what you're feeling or start again or get back up. Emotional avoidance is like closing this messy, messy, messy closet door and hoping it'll clean itself. It doesn't. That mess, it waits and it grows and it amplifies and it's exponentially bigger and it eventually spills out into unexpected ways. Snapping at your partner, crying over something small, feeling exhausted by everything and nothing all at once, feeling like the relationships that you think matter most are not getting the best of you. In healthcare, we toe this line where avoidance feels necessary and we intentionally guard our emotions, which is interesting because depersonalization is one of the symptoms of burnout. So, being too depersonalized means we're not engaged and passionate. But we can't cry at every code. We can't fall apart between every patient. We can't scream at our attending or our colleague within the middle of rounds, right? We have to rein in those emotions at work, but we forget how to let them out and let ourselves feel them outside of work. So instead of processing those emotions, instead of dealing with that stress, we pack it away. But your body keeps the score. And unfelt emotions don't just evaporate, they fester. They store themselves as tension, fatigue, or apathy. You will find yourself living into those emotions even if you haven't processed them. Avoidance says, I'm fine. I'll deal with it later. Healing says, can I make space to feel this now? Can I deal with some of this stress or some of these emotions? Can I debrief? Can I find a trusted colleague or a place that I can just have a little breathing room during the day? You don't have to process everything all at once. And if you have been practicing medicine for years and not practicing dealing with your emotions, it's going to take some time to admit when it's hard, to feel that this stress is real, to stop pretending that fine is the full story and really describes how you are doing during this season. If you've been feeling exhausted, no matter how much you sleep, snappy with the people that you love the most, disconnected from your body and your emotions, it's possible that your stress cycle is stuck on incomplete. Think about your stress response as a tunnel. Stressors occur and into the tunnel you go. And you're at work, so stressors are occurring and occurring and occurring. And it's dark in there. There isn't much light. And the only way out is through. Completing that stress cycle brings you out the other side of that tunnel into the light. But staying stuck in that stress tunnel naturally blunts your ability to connect with others, to do things that you enjoy and have a positive impact, and to simply live your life. Completing that stress cycle is so important. These 5 coping mechanisms that I've talked about today feel normal because they're incredibly common, but they're also not effective in moving you through that tunnel and completing that stress cycle. They can also quietly move us from acute stress to chronic burnout. Burnout happens when the stress that we're experiencing overwhelms our ability to deal with that stress. So the next episode where we talk about actually healthy ways is so important. Make sure that you're subscribed. Stress is unavoidable. That's the reality of this life that we're living, and especially a life working in medicine. But the good news, we're not powerless. Like any diagnosis that you make, step 1 is identifying the thing, these maladaptive stress responses, naming it, noting if and when you're using these coping mechanisms in your own life. And step 2 is learning to process that stress in a more productive, healthy, and effective way. In the next episode, I'll walk you through science-backed ways to complete the stress cycle so your mind can find rest, regulation, and resilience. Make sure that you're subscribed because the next part is where the healing starts. That's all for today. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to another episode of The PA is In, This PA is Out. Congratulations, you've just joined an awesome club. By listening to a full episode of The PA is In, you are officially on the Unicorn PA team. Welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episode of the show. The life of your dreams exists on the other side of taking action. Keep making small shifts and keep getting better. Your life will improve, your career will soar, and you will have the confidence you need to create your own success. I will see you in the next episode. This PA is out.